All eyes now on Wisconsin as the state plays host to the Republican National Convention. Events kicked off this morning, and right now much of the talk is on the selection of Ohio Senator J.D. Vance as Donald Trump's vice presidential running mate. Our chief political reporter Jason Zimmerman is live in Milwaukee with Your Voice, Your Vote coverage. Jason.
Jeff, the Ohio senator is a firebrand among many conservatives and already proving to be a popular choice among delegates here on the convention floor tonight. He does face a big test on Wednesday night when he gives a speech before a national audience with a lot of independents and undecided voters expected to watch. This is something local delegates tell me will be a big deal.
Having front row seats at the Republican National Convention, Wisconsin's delegation appeared on the convention floor for the very first time Monday afternoon, with its 3 members from the 8th Congressional District sharing this picture to show their excitement.
Brown County is a huge contender for the election this year. It's one of 5 counties that will determine the election, and so super excited to be representing Green Bay out of all places.
23-year-old Dixon Wolf is among the youngest delegates in the group. He's hoping to be a voice for others his age who are undecided heading into November's election.
The party's really shifted to focusing on younger voters. We need to focus on the next generation. A lot of our generation is hurting financially.
Just outside the security perimeter surrounding the convention area, protesters also expressing themselves.
Down with deportation!
All having different reasons for opposing a second Trump presidency.
We got to show up because our rights are on the line, and it's scary to have another second term. And Trump's also trying to get out of jail. That's why he's running to be president, and no one supports him.
That protest attracting a smaller crowd than the 5,000 organizers expected. Also saw a counter-protest involving a handful of people. Still, delegates haven't felt unsafe, and Wolf says his party is united.
I think there's already a lot of momentum going on, especially after the debate. But the convention's just going to light a fire. Whoever Trump picks as a VP, I really encourage him to pick a good one that will win over the hearts of independents and conservatives as well.
And Dixon Wolf finding out just after that interview that J.D. Vance was indeed confirmed as Trump's running mate. And this is coming all as a lot of stuff is unfolding for Wisconsin delegates right now. And this includes House Speaker Newt Gingrich speaking to them early this morning. He talked about the state of politics following the incident with Donald Trump on Saturday, what he had to say coming up tonight at 6 o'clock. Reporting live from the RNC in Milwaukee, Jason Zimmerman, Action 2 News.